Every summer, millions of tourists descend on Norway, only to end up being stuck in a scenic traffic jam. What they don't know is that just across the border in Sweden, there is a stunning and wild road trip without the crowds. Today, we're going to show you a complete road trip itinerary so you don't miss out on any of the best spots. Vildmarksvägen, or Wilderness Road in English, is a road trip in northern Sweden that rewards those who venture north with crystal blue lakes, seemingly endless forests, and waterfalls that put Niagara Falls to shame. By North American standards, it is a fairly short road trip at only 500 kilometers, but there's so much to see that it'll make you want to move to Sweden permanently. The road starts in Strömsund, which is a small town about 6.5 hours north of Stockholm. From there, the road goes west towards the Norwegian border before making its way across the Stekenjokk mountain plateau, which has some very unique claims to fame, but we'll get to that soon. After that, the road turns east, passing several stunning lakes before arriving in the small town of Vilhelmina. If you only have 1 week for your road trip to northern Sweden, you can technically complete the route in just 5 days, which is what we did. However, you could easily spend twice as long and not get bored. Your road trip starts with a visit to a beautiful and fascinating waterfall. Hällingsåfallet plunges into a canyon at a 90-degree angle before flowing into a huge lake that stretches all the way back to Strömsund town. I've been to Niagara Falls, and I can honestly say that Hällingsåfallet is a lot more impressive. There's a bridge that goes right across the top of the waterfall, so you can get a sense of the drop and intensity of the water. On both sides of the bridge, there are plenty of easily accessible viewpoints, so you can easily fill up your phone with pictures of the waterfall from every possible angle without even breaking a sweat. 99% of the visitors that we saw never even left the top of the falls, but they're all missing out on a easy but top-notch hike that runs along the canyon. Simply take a left right before the bridge and follow the little path that runs all the way down to the lake. It's only about 2k each way, but there are so many little viewpoints along the way that you're going to want to pop into those and get a glimpse of the water that rushes through the canyon, so the hike will take longer than you think. Once you've reached the lake, you can reward yourself with a refreshing dip in the crystal clear, cool water. Even though Hällingsåfallet is one of the main attractions along the Wilderness Road, there's actually very few people hiking down. Our next adventure is a visit to a lake that wins the award for the most literal name ever, and that is Stora Blasjon, or Big Blue Lake in English. If you're obsessed with the Muppets Treasure Island like I am, then I'm willing to bet that this song is going to be playing on a loop in your head as soon as you heard that name.
Sailing for adventure on the Big Blue thing.
Okay, now that you've got a Muppet song stuck in your head, let's talk about what there is to see around the Big Blue Lake. As you might expect, based on the name, there is a lot to see, and you could easily spend a week just traveling around this massive lake, swimming and exploring new places every day. But since I promised you a 5-day road trip, we're going to limit ourselves to just 1 day. The first place you should visit is Brakkafallet, which, if you remember your Swedish from our first stop, is a waterfall. But before we get into that, if you want to create your own self-guided tour of the Wilderness Road, we've created an interactive Google map and travel guide. With over 30 curated locations, including the road trip route, top attractions, and hiking trails, our map will help you get the most out of your road trip. Our map also includes pins for campgrounds and wild camping spots where you can spend the night. Our personal tips are also included in each map pin. Download the map directly into your Google Maps app to find the best spots at the click of a button. You'll find the link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on screen. Brakkafallet is actually 2 waterfalls. There's an upper and a lower waterfall. It is a somewhat strenuous hike if you haven't been getting your steps in, but luckily it's pretty short, and there's plenty of opportunities to pause along the way to take pictures. Once you've completed the obligatory hike to the top, you can show off your manliness or womanliness by going for a dip in the refreshing, aka cold, pools at the bottom of the lower waterfall. Unless you enjoy being covered in itchy bumps though, I recommend that you go swimming in the earlier part of the day, just so you don't get mosquito bites in any awkward places. The area around Stora Blasjon is known for hiking, and there are several other hiking trails that you could visit if you have more time in the area. Some of these hiking areas are the Korallgrottans and Bjoelvens nature reserves. Now that you're all rejuvenated from your cold plunge, it's time to head off to the Sami church town of Ankarede, which is situated further east along the shores of the Big Blue Lake. Here you can explore the old church along with the traditional Swedish cottages that are situated around it. A little bit further along the lake, you'll find several recreations of the traditional Sami huts that are a bit reminiscent of Native American teepees, except the Sami huts were designed to be permanent dwellings. Although the church and the town are pretty in their own right, the main reason that I recommend visiting Ankarede is so that you can hike to Waterfallet, which is, you guessed it, another waterfall. To get to the waterfall, you need to cross a bridge where there's a little museum. After you've crossed the bridge, turn left and you'll be on the hiking trail to Waterfallet. The hike runs along one of the tributaries to the Big Blue Lake, with lots of boardwalk sections to stop you sinking into the marshy areas, and some great views of the water. Once you reach the falls, there's a little bench where you can enjoy a well-deserved picnic with an incredible view. If you feel the need to hike for several hours more, you can continue along that hiking trail, and you'll eventually reach Ankarvatnet, which is another large lake. Up next is an area that will either fascinate you or completely bore you. But before we share that, make sure you subscribe for more no-nonsense travel tips that'll help you plan your own grand adventure. The Stekenjokk mountain plateau boasts the highest paved road in Sweden, and it reaches an elevation of 867 meters above sea level. As soon as you start gaining elevation, you'll start to notice how the landscape changes from dense pine and birch forest into an Arctic tundra. Seeing this change in the landscape is really fascinating, and honestly, even if you didn't leave the car, just seeing that change would still be worth it. Apart from the views, this landscape also holds importance for the indigenous Sami people. Stekenjokk is a summer feeding ground for reindeer, and to this day, the Sami herd their reindeer into this area during the spring and summer months. If you're lucky, you'll get a chance to spot some reindeer when you visit. If you're wondering where all the trees went once you hit the plateau, well, Stekenjokk is in a subarctic climate due to its high elevation. The distinction is surprisingly clear, and even where the trees are able to grow, you'll notice that the birch trees are more stunted and rarely grow straight. This is also partially due to the high wind speeds that can occur on the plateau. In fact, the highest wind speed ever recorded in Sweden was on the Stekenjokk plateau. Unlike our previous stops, there isn't a big waterfall hike on the Stekenjokk plateau. But don't worry, there is still ample opportunity for you to exercise your leg muscles. There's two great areas that you can explore right from the main parking lot at the old Stekenjokk mine. Depending on how fit you're feeling, you can either choose to cross the road from the parking lot and hike up the hill to get some fantastic views of the surrounding landscape. Now, there's not really a defined hiking trail here, so just follow the snowmobile paths to the top. And those paths are denoted by a red X on a pole, so you can't really get lost if you just follow those. If you want a more high-tech solution, then the hike is also marked in the All Trails app. If you want pretty views but without the leg burn, and you still insist on having a daily dose of waterfalls, then option 2 is for you. From the parking lot, follow the gravel path that leads towards the old mine. Once there, you'll reach what looks like a huge lake, but is in fact part of the old mine. There's several gravel paths that cross the lake, but I suggest you start by following the path that heads north. As you get nearer the main road, you'll come across Stekenjokk, which is a small waterfall with a small lake that is perfect for a quick dip. This waterfall is marked on our map, so you can easily find it. It is a bit of a scramble to get down to the lake, but when we were there, a mum with her 2 kids had made it down, so even those of us who've indulged in one too many ice creams should be able to make it down safely. If you still have energy to burn, then you can head back the way you came. But instead of going to the parking lot, you just cross the dam and head towards the wide open alpine meadow. Once there, you can walk for as long as your heart desires and then simply turn back. One thing to note about hiking in Stekenjokk is that you need to be on the lookout for signs regarding special protection areas for ground nesting birds. The hiking ban normally applies for 1 month between June and July. However, this does not affect the hiking area around the mine. If you've got any questions about the Wilderness Road or even just doing a road trip in Sweden, Let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer every single one. Our next stop boasts 7 rapids, a waterfall, and even some trolls. To make it to Kullafallet, which is the waterfall you're aiming for, you're gonna have to do some hiking. The good news is that the hike is extremely pretty, and when we were there, we only ran into one other couple. The hike also incorporates a cute little trail created by the locals in the area, which is called Trappstegsforsen, or the Troll Path. Along the way, you'll find lots of rocks that have been painted by the local children to look like trolls. You can choose to just hike to the waterfall and then backtrack if you want the shortest route. We opted to make it a loop by combining the waterfall hike with another trail, and that was definitely worth it. This loop isn't very well marked on the ground, but it is plotted on the All Trails app, so you can follow that and avoid getting lost. Because this area is quite moist, there are a ton of mosquitoes and biting flies around. So this is a hike that should really be finished earlier in the day, and even then you should wear long trousers and long sleeves. If you don't do that, then you'll end up spending the hike slapping yourself silly, and you'll still end up with legs that look like they're covered in chickenpox. The next town in your road trip is not only incredibly beautiful, but it also boasts an interesting history. Getting to the town involves driving 6k on a gravel road, which really made us debate whether we should visit Fatmomakke at all, since we didn't want to risk damaging our friend's trailer. Thankfully, we decided to go for it, and the dirt road was actually in pretty good condition. The town of Fatmomakke is one of the most prominent Sami church towns in Sweden, and the community has done a great job of preserving the historical buildings. If you're like me and enjoy learning about the history of an area, you'll also be happy to know that there are plenty of signs explaining the historical usage of the different buildings, along with more general information about the Samis. In fact, there was so much information that my wife had to put a time limit on how long I could spend in each building. Let me know in the comments if you're also a history nerd. Fatmomakke also has several reconstructions of the traditional huts that the Sami used to live in when they were visiting the town. We were lucky enough to see one under construction, and it was fascinating to see the engineering behind what from the outside looks like a very basic structure. The centerpiece of the town is of course the church, and the current iteration was built in the late 1800s. Although the architecture can't compete with the famous cathedrals of Europe, it has a view over the lake that Notre Dame can only dream of. We first saw this next stop in the middle of the winter, and we had no idea that it was a famous site. Trappstegsforsen, or stepladder rapids in English, are an impressive set of cascading rapids that straddle the Kullsjö River. Seeing these rapids in the summer was fascinating, as the area had a completely different feel to it. When we first saw them in the winter, I was able to stand in the middle of the road and take pictures to my heart's content. It felt really remote and isolated. That is most definitely not the case in the summer, where the parking lot is usually full, and there's even a little kiosk that sells ice cream. While Trappstegsforsen is considered to be one of the main highlights of the Wilderness Road, there isn't much to do here apart from taking way too many photos, of course. Since there's no hikes starting from the parking lot, I recommend moving on to our next stop. These next rapids are not actually one of the main attractions, but that just means that you get them all to yourself. To reach the Dimforsen rapids, you have to follow a trail that runs along the river. Because the trail is quite hidden and a bit overgrown, it feels like you're discovering a secret area. Don't worry, there are a few small signs pointing you in the right direction. And if you just follow the river, you can't really get too lost. You'll also see a sign warning people that hiking the trail is done at their own risk, which sounds really ominous, but as long as you don't jump in the river, I don't see what makes this trail warranty that disclaimer. The rapids are really pretty, and you can even walk quite far out into the river along the cliffs, so it almost feels like you're standing in the middle of them. These rapids aren't as large as Trappstegsforsen, but their secluded location makes them feel a lot more special. Because the Wilderness Road is so far north, you can only travel the whole loop inside a small window of time. More specifically, the whole loop is only open between the 6th of June and the 15th of October. The rest of the year, you won't be able to drive over the Stekenjokk plateau due to heavy snowfall. Although you can, and we have inadvertently, driven other parts of the Wilderness Road during the winter, it's really not the same experience. Most campgrounds are going to be closed, and the majority of the hikes are completely inaccessible unless you want to go snowshoeing. The busiest time of year is going to be August. This is when almost every single European country is on vacation. Scandinavia, and especially Vildmarksvagen, is a very popular travel destination with both German and Dutch campervans. If you're flexible, I would recommend traveling around the middle of July. The weather will have warmed up nicely and all the snow will be gone from the hiking trails, and they'll have had a bit of a chance to dry out as well. We traveled the Wilderness Road in the middle of July and we had perfect weather the entire time, with daytime temperatures in the low 20s and nights that were cool enough that we could get a good night's sleep. It was a little bit busy since a lot of Swedes were on vacation, but as soon as we got past the parking lot or just the main attraction, we would usually have the hikes to ourselves. In June, there will be less tourists, but the weather can be very hit and miss. There's also a good chance that there'll still be some snow in Stekenjokk, and some of the hiking trails might also be quite soggy from the snowmelt. September and October will be the least busiest times, but the daytime temperatures will drop to the low teens, which is great for hiking, but less ideal for swimming. If you're planning on traveling towards the tail end of the season, you'll probably also end up being chased south by the first snowfall, which usually comes in October. Almost everyone traveling Vildmarksvägen is doing so in an RV or on a motorcycle. So it's not surprising that campgrounds along the Wilderness Road are very popular. We weren't even traveling in the peak season, although it was during Swedish school holidays. And the 2 campgrounds that we stayed at were almost completely full. And there's not that many campgrounds along the road. So if you are planning on using campgrounds, you should call ahead and make a reservation. They usually speak excellent English and are happy to help. You should generally expect to pay about 300 to 350 Swedish kroner per night for these campgrounds, and that includes electricity. Whenever we travel in our own van, we always prefer wild camping, and Sweden is a fantastic place for that since you're allowed to park and sleep in your vehicle pretty much anywhere where there's a road and no signs banning it. If you download the Park for a Night app, you can find lots of good places marked where other travelers have stayed. Even in the summer, the evenings can still become quite cool in northern Sweden. So if you want to sit outside and enjoy the midnight sun, you need to pack accordingly. You'll quickly discover that hiking trousers and flannel shirts are pretty much the local uniform up north. There's a good reason for that. The mosquitoes are big and hungry in the north, and there's also lots of midges that bite, along with the local horseflies. A flannel shirt like this one is a great way to layer for the cooler temperatures, and it's thick enough to keep mosquitoes and flies from biting you. If you buy hiking trousers from one of the big Swedish brands like Hägglöfs or Fjällräven, they're usually designed to be lightweight, but still withstand mosquitoes and biting flies as well. I generally hate wearing trousers in the summer, but I really regretted not packing any on our trip because my legs got destroyed by mosquito and midge bites, and I had to constantly soak them in cold water to deal with the itchiness. If you're hiking in really soggy areas, you'll quickly discover that the mosquitoes are especially bad. In those cases, you might want to put on some natural non-toxic bug spray just to help keep the mosquitoes off of any exposed skin. You'll find links for our recommendations in the description below. I would also skip sandals, as there's nothing worse than getting mosquito bites in between your toes. Ask me how I know. Instead, stick to thick wool socks and a good pair of hiking boots or shoes. Another great tip that'll help you save time and money on your next trip is to watch our latest video here.